the normal of COVID. The normal of COVID, which we have found. I mean, I don't know about you all, but I feel like two and some change years in, I do feel some version of that this is our life now. And I've been heartened with how many people have continued to show up. I mean, the first week, I remember thinking, are any of our dog walkers going to continue, either out of their own safety or for their families or for the clients, and the vast majority did. So it's something.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, without you guys, I will mention more about that, of course, also when we, in a couple of minutes. But without you guys, honestly, I don't know what I will do for my, animal companions that I had in my life, and I always appreciate a lot when the volunteers show up right here, with the bags of things and. So, hello, Susan. We're just giving a few minutes for people to start just gathering, and we will just start in about 5 minutes or so. But honestly, I think PAWS is one of those organizations that sometimes is underrated. Like it just goes like, right there, and to really see how much really helps many of us. So I'm very thankful. So we'll talk about that.
I'm really glad that it's been able to support you and others so much. The bags and the arrivals, the volunteers, just that human presence. We all need that.
Yeah. And always, also like the volunteers are so kind and so nice, and I see sometimes elders or other people that I feel something like, oh my God, so thank you for doing that. So otherwise, everybody has been okay with your health, at least for now. I hope so. Anyway, so I had COVID just like about it has been already a month and a half, and it was kind of rough. But we are here. So I'm very excited also, Lynette. The study seems to really keep going around, in different places and in different things. The funny thing, and I will give you just a couple of more minutes. It's like after the study, Lynette, you gave me an upbringing of now almost every email that I'm receiving from many of these places. I am Dr. Jesus or Professor Jesus.
Oh, that's good.
Yes.
No, it's
so many
amazing how
papers.
much attention this paper has gotten.
Yeah.
Has it been really high?
I just checked the numbers right now, and it's in the 99th percentile for attention.
Wow.
So that means it's in the top 1% for getting a lot of readers and attention. It has an altmetric score of 262. It's very high. So people are very interested in these results. That's what that tells us.
And Dennis have a guest right there. Look at the puppy.
Yeah. And we did get very different results than other studies, because other studies always talk about all the difficulties of people with AIDS and how many health problems they have and all the bad aspects of their demographics. But what we found was that our older men who had pets were really doing extremely well. So we tapped in with Jesus's community is a very different community than other people have studied. And these are people who have really been proactive in going out and making connections with other people, learning how to take care of themselves and doing things that are positive for their health. And it's paying off for them. It's amazing. And it's the older men. So I think maybe they also learned something from their earlier experiences that were so long and difficult.
I think so. So let's start officially. Again, I will be in charge of starting to let people coming in if they show up. And again, this will be recorded for everybody else, and I will give you the link as soon as we have it available, and you guys will be able to share it as well. So I just want to say thank you very much first, before anything else, in the name of HIV London survivors and many other people living through all these new pandemics. And I don't even know in the history of humanity, we have had one pandemic on top of another pandemic, now on top of another pandemic, and we're here. So for whoever does not know me, my name is Jesus Guillen, and we are right here in San Francisco. Well, I'm doing the Zoom from San Francisco, and my background is in mass media and communications. And also, before I introduce all our guests, and Ken was saying to say less the word, I think it was the word amazing, but maybe because that's what I feel about you. A few years back, I took a class about communication between humans and other animals. And the first thing that we learned when we entered the class, it was that the professor was blind. And the first thing that the professor told us was, please don't put your hand up. Why? Because of course, because he couldn't see. So he told us, please throw a little paper to me or make a big noise or something. And what I'm going with that is, it doesn't matter what other people do, what you guys have created between the communication between you and your animal companion is there and exists, and is a beautiful thing. And myself, I have a wonderful kitty at this time, and I'm thankful for her. So saying that, I want to introduce you to the guests that we have today, that I had the pleasure that just help a little bit from myself and from our wonderful community. And yes, Susan, it is also true, and we have to recognize that we couldn't be also including women, but in this particular case, in this particular survey, it was a lot of men, and we have to include that in the future. So I want to introduce you to Ken, and forgive me about my pronunciations always, Ken Gorczyca, Lynette Hart, and Katherine D'Amato, also representing PAWS. So I want to give all of you a little bit chance to introduce yourself in somehow, how is that you got involved in this area, not only about the animals, but also about the pandemics and everything. So why don't we start with you, Lynette, because you had been the powerful force behind many of these things that we're doing right now, and about the importance of it, about the role of animal companions in our pandemics and so.
Well, I was very lucky to meet Ken in the really early days, Ken Gorczyca, back when PAWS was just starting. And so we've been friends from the very beginning, and we've been checking in with each other and kept in contact. And I visited PAWS. We did an early paper a long time ago about the value of animals for people with AIDS. And that was in the days when people with AIDS were in bed. They were really invalids. So the results were a little different. But of course, the animals were still important. And in those days, when people were invalids, cats were definitely way better than dogs, because the people were not well enough to take care of the dogs. Yeah. Anyway, over the years, we just kept in touch, and this was a nice surprise that we were able to put this study together. And as Ken knows, I have some other data from a few years ago that I still need to dust off. So it's been encouraging to see how great the interest is in these results.
I'm curious, and also because you're talking about the old times, before I pass to introduce our other two guests, was it something personal in your life, or how was your experience when you started to see also, our communities going through such a horrible times? Was it anything else that you remember, or everything that you?
Well, my first career, I was a school teacher for 5 years. Okay. Starting in the 1950s. And two of my closest friends that taught with me in Atherton were gay men. And they rode with me. We kind of carpooled. I drove from Millbrae to Atherton, and they rode with me. I picked them up at the train station. So we were close friends. And then I moved to New Jersey for some years. And I kept, of course, then Ben and I went to Rwanda just as AIDS was really breaking loose, and we were hearing from people there about AIDS in the primates, among the primates. So we knew about it. And I lived in New Jersey for a long while, and I could not find any contact with my two friends. So that was always lurking in the back of my mind. And so maybe that was part of my interest when I connected with Ken, because my friend Jack Urey, when I was in the city, I always think about him because he had a house on Russian Hill. And I never knew what happened to him, but when we had the preview of Last Men Standing at the Davis campus, and all of the men who were featured, like yourself, were there, I talked with a couple of them and I said, I'm wondering whatever happened to my friends Jack Urey and Ron Rice. And someone said, oh, well, you need to look on the AIDS quilt.
Wow.
Oh my God, there they were.
Mm.
And Jack had his own square, and Ron was on a square with about 30 other people. So that was a piece of it, I'm sure.
Thank you.
It was always in my heart because they were special friends.
Yeah, I guess I always like to precisely look, we see the results on the scientific side and the papers, but then I know that usually there's always something personal. So thank you for sharing that. Ken, what can I say about Ken? I don't know, since I met him, I just love your energy before anything else. And also your professionalism and your interest in all these areas. So I'm gonna let you also, I know that you're one of the founders, one of the founding members of PAWS, but I let you talk a little bit about your own journey. So go ahead, Ken.
Well, I started practicing veterinary medicine in 1984 in San Francisco, which is the dawn of the AIDS pandemic. And so I was, as a young vet student, I was pushed right into the pandemic, and my clients were already asking questions about the risk of owning a pet for someone who was immunosuppressed, because there's a lot of illness that could be transmitted. And there really was nothing known, and there was no studies. And so, but I also remembered my human animal bond teacher, Lynette Hart at Davis, and she had a pivotal study that showed that people in wheelchairs that were out in public spaces, if they had a dog with them, they got a lot more attention from the public. And so I said, this is going to be the same thing with people with AIDS, because and it turns out it was true. But not only that, when we created Pets Are Wonderful Support, we were actually keeping people together with their pets at a time when they needed the support of a volunteer to help walk the dog, or help financially with pet food or veterinary care. And so I've always had an interest in the AIDS pandemic. I'm a long-term survivor of AIDS myself. I was infected when I was in veterinary school, as it turns out, in 1981. And so when the COVID pandemic came, I started to hear the same issues that we were dealing with during the AIDS pandemic, and our pet's a problem, or, and there's just a lot of misinformation. And so talking to Lynette and Katherine and Jesus and Aubrey Fine, we decided it'd be really interesting to do a study of long-term survivors and see if we could find if there was commonality, or how are they dealing with this second pandemic. And so that's where this study came from. And I'm really excited to see how much attention it has gotten. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Sure, 2 cents. Well, thank you. And I'm sure, again, through the conversation, many more also personal things will come out. And I have other questions for you. So Katherine, the first thing, again, I always recognize when someone that has certain kind of position in an agency or place takes a moment to say hello or to check in somebody else, and you always do that. And for that, I'm always thankful as well. How long had you, or tell us about your position that you have in Shanti or PAWS now that everything is, maybe you can tell a little bit more about that and how long you've been in these areas, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jesus, and really appreciate your powerful activism and community work. You're such a natural connector. I really appreciate that. Dr. Hart, Dr. Gorczyca, I'm grateful to have known you as long as we have, and to work together on this project has been such a joy. I started at PAWS in 2009. I was essentially a care navigator, but we didn't call it that back then. And I was there for a couple of years. Then I left to go back to school for program management. And then I came back in 2014 in the director role. And as Jesus has mentioned, we merged with Shanti, which, as for folks who don't know, is a very long time, powerful community organization that served very similar populations. And had a really unique model about peer-to-peer support and making sure that there's this phrase about the difference between 0 and 1. And basically, if you have 0 people or 0 creatures in your life, how big of a difference it is to have one friend or one neighbor or one pet, and just that difference. And I think we can all resonate with that on a human level. So I thought about PAWS and Shanti. I mean, part of it was necessity. Certainly PAWS was in a difficult financial situation. But when we thought about possible partnerships, Shanti certainly rose to the top of the list very quickly. And, I will say at the beginning, I, like others, was a little bit nervous, and would it work? And would it be a good home for PAWS? I felt a little bit protective. But, it's 2022, and I'm proud to say that PAWS has tripled in our size of a programming. We serve a huge variety of people and services, and are just really integrated within Shanti. So when the opportunity came up to work with some of these great Zoom faces here, I jumped at it along with Raquel Bernaldo, the PAWS manager, who is an incredible part of not only the program, but also the study. And just briefly, what's bringing me to this work, I'm a queer person. Community and belonging is very important to me. And I'm also someone who struggled with mental health issues and chronic pain in my life and in people that I love. And so it's definitely something where I think a lot about the human experience and what are the nature of suffering and what that's like. And so when I think about how and who and where we show up to reduce suffering, animals are a big part of that. They're so natural, they're so connected. And so the idea of reducing isolation, whether it's through the animal themselves or the associated people, one of the things that really struck me in this pandemic, we could talk more about it, but is thinking about not only the pet providing that support, but the people serving the pet, that supports the person. So the person delivering the dog food, the person coming to walk the dog, all of those folks. So really appreciate being part of this great group, and happy to be here today.
Yeah, and before we really, again, we pass, one of the issues is exactly, one of the points is to focus, of course, in the results of the study. I will love you if you can talk a little bit about PAWS, not only, of course, because also Ken and you are involved in Lynette, but also because I am one of the recipients that really gets help from PAWS. Can you tell people about what PAWS is? Maybe, I don't know, a little bit of the history, and also, if you guys also need some help and something like that, because it is always good to put this on the plate in case if somebody listens and say, hey, I can volunteer, or I can add some money or something. So what is PAWS?
Absolutely. Happy to share about that. So raise your hand if you've heard of PAWS, Pets Are Wonderful Support. All right, so it's a familiar crowd here, but there might be other folks watching, and perhaps people know some parts and not others. So as Ken mentioned, we started out of the HIV immediate epidemic, though the epidemic is still happening in its own way. And the piece that, when I think about the beginnings of PAWS, I think of two stories. One is the pet food bank and how that started out of the human food bank with the SF AIDS Foundation, and how people were coming to the SF AIDS Foundation for human food, but they really also needed pet food. And so not having to make that choice, of course, we wanted to start providing pet food. And so we started doing that out of the food bank, and it grew into its own thing very quickly, which is just a testament to the need. And the other piece really is Ken, I would love to hear anything else you want to share about this, but as I understand it, as it's passed along from queer generation to queer generation, what I understand is that, we just didn't know so much about HIV and how it was transmitted and how it was not transmitted. And so understandably, there was a lot of stigma, and there was a lot of fears also. When I talked to particularly gay men from that time, and who had pets during that time, they talk about just not knowing, feeling like, okay, here's my cat is my lifeline, and yet, can I change their litter? Is that going to make me sick? What's going to happen? And for friends and partners and lovers as well. So when I think about the work that Ken did, which was picked up by the CDC, put on their website, it's creating the Safe Pet Guidelines, which is the first of its kind in the nation, really gave people this harm reduction approach of saying, okay, here's what to do and here's what not to do. Okay, so, wear gloves in this scenario for the litter. Okay, these types of birds, like just really practical tips, not shaming. That was so powerful. And I'm proud because that legacy really continues today. PAWS and Shanti operates in a harm reduction approach, and we really meet people where they're at, literally and metaphorically. So we serve about 500 clients ongoing, as well as another several hundred on one time, and additional community support. And what we do is we provide a suite of different services. So all of our clients are low income. They're all either seniors or folks living with a disability, or often both. And they're all San Francisco residents. And so depending what they need for their pet, we try to keep them together with their pet. And so what that can look like is, as Ken mentioned, the financial assistance for veterinary care, that's huge. That's really important. And I think that's a racial justice issue and a social justice issue. We provide the pet food bank. We have mobility, clients with mobility issues. We provide at-home delivery, which is really important. And sometimes that's the only person that they hear from or see. Often that month, which is very strong. It stands out to me. And then a whole suite of supportive pet care services. So everything from dog walking to cat care, litter box, that sort of thing. And so, yeah, we're definitely always looking for folks. Right now, we especially are in need of folks to help with our pet food bank deliveries. If you have a car, or if you want to ride with a friend, it's a really easy way on a Saturday morning to just connect up with the community and give back in that way. Of course, donations are always appreciative. Also, just spreading the word about PAWS. For anyone that might want to support or learn about what we do.
And we will share this recording. And we're going to start in a couple of minutes with this survey that we just happened and the results. I want to mention before that, right now, there's so much that is being done in trying to get money and everything for mental health. And I think many people in the community sometimes forget that mental health is not just getting the therapies, but also, again, like you were mentioning, how in this particular case, how our animal companions, they give us so much, and maintaining that, their food and everything else. And you guys, again, have been amazing to even give me, one of those things that move the dirt for the kitty, and it helps me with that, and it makes it safer for me. So I'm very, very thankful. But we have to remember, especially right now in these days, that we're asking for a lot of money for mental health for the pandemics. And now we're talking not just about HIV, but also COVID-19 and now monkeypox. And even my doctor told me to get the vaccine for the meningococcal because there were some cases on the area. So we're going to start now with a little bit about the survey and how it happened and the results. Thank you for the people that keep joining us. Again, this is going to be recorded and we will share it with other people soon. So I was lucky to be approached by this. I'm going to make Ken repeat this word less than that, but by these amazing people. I was lucky to be approached by you guys and to try to collaborate a little bit in this survey. So why don't you, Lynette, started to how, or in between the two of you guys as well, Ken, how did it happen and the title of the survey, and then a little bit about how did it happen. And I would love to get in between the three of you, a little bit of the results of what you guys consider the most important aspects that you saw happening. Once again, it's very obvious that our pets help us, and I know that, but tell us a little bit about the title and how it happened and the most important results. Lynette?
Well, first of all, we wanted to know what was the experience that these people had had with the two pandemics. And the strongest result right off the bat was that they all said AIDS was much worse than COVID. And that's not surprising because it went on for so long and so many people died, but it was an overwhelming response. And it was a particularly strong result from the older people who participated. So they had been the ones who had lost more friends and were seeing everyone around them dying and really didn't expect to live themselves for very long. So it wasn't a surprising result. But that was the first piece, that for sure they were more isolated during the AIDS pandemic, whereas with COVID, everyone was isolated. It's more of a society-wide thing, so it was less drastic. But then we also zeroed in on what did it matter, or what was the effect of having a companion animal? And we found that the older participants were doing better than the younger ones. So they had really, I think it was a really special community that you provided us, because these are people that are connected in your web group. So they talk to other people, they reach out, they're looking for solutions for themselves. And the ones who had dogs and were out there walking their dogs were doing especially well. They were feeling less lonely, less depressed, more positive. They felt more supported. So that's kind of my basic take home. But I think Ken has a better perspective because he's more inside that community. He's more connected with it. And I want to hear what he has to say about it.
Yeah, and me too. And by the way, and one of the things that I want to mention, this is one of those moments that who's the cat people and who's the dog people, and how do we feel about it? So I was also myself kind of, by the answers that we were receiving about who was doing better. But Mija, my kitty, love you and thank you. So you don't listen to you don't like something. So Ken,
Well,
can you tell us about this?
sure. Well, you ask about the title, and we went through many working titles. This paper took us about a year to put together, so it was a long time coming. And we realized early on that the participants in the study were mostly men, and that makes sense in this. That we were going towards these website groups that Jesus was running, and several others, and AIDS, especially in the early part of the pandemic, was mostly men. And that's really unusual because for animal studies, because typically when we do animal studies, as Lynette can attest to, it's usually women participants. So this was a really, not only was it an important study for the pandemics, but it was an important study for animal companionship in general, because this is one of the few that is focused on men. So that's sort of why that we titled it Focused on Men. I just know that in the early parts of the pandemic, of the second pandemic, there was a lot of support groups online that people we didn't know what was going on. Again, there was a lot of misinformation. Were pets at risk? Were pets catching it? And it turns out, yes, dogs and cats can get COVID. A lot of these cats in the zoos got COVID, but it turns out they're not really a big part of the pandemic. It's mostly people to people. So it turns out that all that anxiety in the beginning sort of dissipated. And this time, the veterinary profession and the medical profession stood right up immediately, compared to the AIDS pandemic, where it took 10 years to really, it took us as local activists to bring this information out. This pandemic, they stood right up, I guess because it was the entire population, but they put all this information out, and it quickly dissipated any falsehoods. So that I was really proud of what happened. And I think that's because it built upon the AIDS pandemic. They all learned from the AIDS pandemic what happened and with pet owners. And we can talk a little bit later about monkeypox, because that's another pandemic. But that's my story for that title.
Yeah, and I guess we will talk also about monkeypox, because now it seems like almost in every news, it seems like even people don't want to talk about COVID anymore. Now it's like let's talk about monkeypox. Lynette, and even for you, Katherine, as well, and Ken, was there any surprises in the results of the study? Was there something that you were not expecting, or it was just usually the regular? I mean, myself, just to even hear, of course, that dog people, and I can understand the fact, because they go out, you have to walk the dogs, you create some kind of talking in between, you have to become social, and someone has to take the dog out. In my case, my kitty and myself, we are a little bundle right there sometimes in bed, and I guess we are a little bit more isolated. But in between everything that we find out and the questions, was there any surprises? Something that you thought, where is this coming from?
Well, yeah, it was a big surprise that these older men were doing so well. It was the much older men that were really thriving. So that's a special subset of people that differ from a variety of other studies that have been done concerning people with AIDS.
Yeah.
And those other studies have all focused on medical problems of the men, whereas we were finding that these were men who were thriving. So the men who are thriving are finding their way to the social support that your web group provides.
Yeah, you know, for me again, I'm like trying to remember even all the different times, and maybe we can also double check some of the things in our service. But yeah, there were many very interesting things, and I'm glad that Susan is here also, and my mom is here, because also we can talk about what it means for women, of course, and the pet companions. No doubt that having a pet is a reason to live. All what I can tell you is that sometimes when I live with chronic pain, and when I wake up, if I really am in a lot of pain, I know that somebody has to feed my kitty. And of course, my mother is also present in this Zoom. And if I'm not feeling that well, I know that my mom might be there for her as well. But many of the people, I mean, especially in the LGBTQ community, they live by themselves. Do you guys feel that we need to provide a little bit more of a home connection for many of these people? I mean, like, again, you talk about the people with dogs can go out and meet with other people, but the people that had cats or birds, or I have to say that I even once I had a little, how you call it? Oh my God, Mama, what was the Pepito? Un caracol. What's a caracol in English?
Snail.
Thank you. I had a little Pepito snail pet, and he was with me for a few years. So we cannot discriminate about other kinds of pets. But I really, we love to hear. And by the way, guys, if you have any questions or something, please put it on the chat. But at the end, in the last 15 minutes or so, I'm going to open up the microphones to talk about your experiences and see. Thank you, Bob.
You jump in here.
Yes, please do.
I think that our population, a lot of them were animal owners, you know, or had animal companions. And so when we think about Viktor Frankl and all his work during the Holocaust, if people have a motivation or a purpose really of living, then they're going to do better. And that's what he found in the Holocaust, in the death camps. And the people that had these needs to be with their family or whatever, or were the ones that survived. And it makes me wonder that some of these long-term survivors that have pets, for some reason, maybe the pets were just one dynamic, but they wanted, you know, they really were going to live no matter what, you know, so that's just a thought. And I think Katherine can talk about the cats and how PAWS changed the way that you deal with cat owners after this study, correct?
Yeah.
I want to come back and talk about the cats before we go to Katherine.
Okay.
Because I don't want Jesus to feel too badly about the cats.
Thank you.
In the earlier study that we did, we learned that cats were a more compatible pet for people who were in pain or were not that mobile. That a dog is not a suitable pet for them. So I think you have to take our conclusions on this more recent paper with a grain of salt, because it wasn't focusing on people who were bedridden or were in pain, which is a different subset of people. And I agree with you that cats are a better pet for some people in that situation. So for those people, as Katherine is going to be able to say, they tend to be more isolated. They're not out as much. And so providing additional social support with other people, more human contact, is really important.
Yeah. So Katherine, what do you think about all these things?
Absolutely. Thank you all. So a few things. One is, when I think about the human animal bond, I just think about how many hours we have to be alive all day, and how difficult that is when things are hard, whether that's a day, a week, a year, whatever it is. And so having that companionship just on a human level feels so critical to me when I think about being human all day long. And I also want to share that at the beginning of the pandemic, I remember I was hearing back, Ken, what you were talking about, and remembering, this was the period, March 2020, April 2020, where many of us were wiping down our groceries to make sure we weren't transmitting. We didn't know that much about fomites and transmission. So I remember, we sent out these emails like every week or so to the volunteers. And I remember some of the early ones talking about, okay, yes, you can go walk your client's dogs, but don't touch the dog. Try to just touch the end of the leash, and just these practical things that we were trying to protect as best we could. About isolation, I think that's such a powerful part of this. And it was ultimately why PAWS was able to get some funding from the city after the merger, is that the city recognized the power of reducing isolation, particularly for LGBTQ folks. And one of the things that PAWS does really well is we have these care navigators. And so they're like a case manager, but also just really, really useful and human. And people want to talk to their PAWS care navigator because instead of just talking about mechanics or something else, it's about their pet. And so one of the ways we reduce isolation is one-on-one. And so if a client is alone, 86% of our clients live alone, at least. And so from our last survey. And so if they're living alone, they can reach out to the care navigator, and it's someone, we always hire people that love pets. So it's someone that really gets it. And they can talk about their pet and really connect and have that connection. Like it's a special interest. People want to share and talk to each other. So that one-on-one piece reduces isolation, because even if you just feel like one person in the world really understands you and gets you and understand what you value, that's powerful. But in addition, when Ken mentioned about how we're pivoting a little bit, one of the things we heard from the survey result is that even with that great care navigator connection, with the food bank delivery volunteers, et cetera, the cat folks still are more isolated. And so one of the things that we're starting to do is look at programming, even little pieces of programming, to reduce the isolation and build connections within each other. And so one thing that we're starting to do is we're collecting pictures from clients with cats. It's very small so far, but we're basically going to do essentially a virtual cat parade, if you will. And first of all, who doesn't like to look at cat pictures? Part of my job. Second of all, it's a way of bringing people into the fold, because when people talk about their pets, their face lights up. You can just tell their whole body language changes. Certainly, I feel happier when I'm talking about someone I love. So I'm excited about some of those new directions, because PAWS services historically have been very one-on-one primarily, except for the food bank where people come in person, and it's an important way to reduce isolation with each other. But I'm excited about ways of connecting clients more to each other as appropriate and as people are desired. It has to be client-led, but we are the central hub, and we can provide some modalities of connection and ways for people to connect with each other.
Yeah, and of course the conversation is not about what's better, cat people or dog people, but sometimes we go there, and we should not discriminate, of course, against snail people and bird people and all the other ones. Without getting too scientific, of course, has been also been talked about how there's neurochemicals and neurophysical effects from the companionship of these animals. Many times when I just touch my kitty, and my kitty is, how you call it when they do the
Purring.
Thank you. Okay, English is my second language, but also my brain is getting older. And it's the HIV, the COVID-19, and all the other things. It really helps me a lot. Lynette, Ken, and Katherine, you say again, one of the results was that especially the older people were in some way doing better. Why do you think is this? Many times, even in our HIV long-term survivors, we talk about always our aches and pains and problems, but we forgot to talk about our coping skills, our strengths. Why do you guys, and this is your opinion or whatever you guys can grab from the survey, why do you think is this?
Yeah, I'd like to know what Ken thinks about this, because it is a most fascinating thing.
Well, my thoughts are that the older population lived through the AIDS pandemic. I mean, they were on the front lines. They dealt with all that loss. They also had they created the support systems that we have today, where the younger generation, I'm not sure where we break that off, but did not live through that. They came in the era of PrEP and of HIV drugs, so that it became more of it wasn't a death sentence. And so they're two totally different populations. And I think when COVID came, if they hadn't already been through a pandemic, it was actually much more traumatic, because they didn't they hadn't experienced it on the front lines. So that's my thought. I don't know if you can prove that from the study, but it surely points in that direction. And I think that maybe having been through two pandemics, or the one pandemic, sort of gives you an inoculation against the second one, because we already knew what to expect. We already had the isolation. We already knew, how to survive that way, where all of a sudden everyone else had to be isolated for the first time. And it was really hard for the whole population, not let alone long-term survivors, but we've already been through it. So it's like, well, we're not isolated. So what's the big deal? We've already been there.
Yeah, I really, and like you say, Ken, there's no way in some way to prove it, and maybe we need more studies, but no doubt for me also that in our coping skills in between, again, in our group that we have, the HIV long-term survivors, the international network, we have a close to 5,000 people, and many times we don't have a one particular reason of why we're here. But one of the things that I kept seeing, it seems like everyone adapted in some way, one on another, to be here. And there are many ways. And what worked for some people, it didn't work for another. But maybe also that's why our elders, and I'm gonna count myself as one. I'm 62 years old. Maybe we are a little bit more adaptable. I think those 6 feet of distance that it was so much talk about during COVID-19, for many of us in the past, it was literally stigma and discrimination that people didn't want to be close to us, not use the bathroom, not use this, not use that. So maybe it's what that adaptability in some way, but all my long-term survivors, my honoring all of you. So let's pass a little bit, because time again is just passing. We are once again in one more, what it seems, and I hope not, but one more probability of a world pandemic with monkeypox. And even you, Lynette, were asking me, maybe we're going to be talking about this or not, but we talked briefly before also, Ken and I, and let's approach it a little bit. I mean, first, again, HIV, we have to repeat sometimes and to tell people, because it seems like sometimes people forget, HIV is still here. It's not like it went away or disappeared or it's not happening. It still happens. COVID-19 with all the variations is still here. And now we have monkeypox. Ken, what did you been finding out? What do you know
Sure.
about this?
Yeah, I just attended the National Veterinary Conference last week in Philadelphia, so I got to talk to a lot of different people about this. There's surely a lot, again, it's not a pandemic in a sense yet, it's more of an epidemic locally in different places, but it is in the gay community for sure. And so that brings back a lot of trauma to all of us, and the difference between this pandemic and HIV is we have a vaccine, we have treatment, and the government is, even though it seems slow, it's moving quickly to vaccinate everybody that needs to be vaccinated. And so that's one difference. It is a zoonotic disease, like all of these were from animals originally. And so that's a common thing. And as of now, there's been no confirmed cases in dogs and cats.
Okay.
So it's possible that they could also catch monkeypox, but it's not been documented. The main risk, I think, for pets is if your owner or your guardian has monkeypox and you have lesions on your skin and you're putting it on the pet, that it could be a fomite transmission to other people. So what the CDC recommends is that you separate yourself from your companion animals until you're actually healed. But I also know that if you have monkeypox and you're isolated, you're going to need your animal companion to be with you, because that's a really hard time as well. From what I understand, it's very painful. And so we just don't have enough information yet, but there's good news that it is, we are vaccinating people now, and it should at least nip it in the bud. But I had a feeling that it will be around, it's spread out of the gay community, it's elsewhere as well. And we'll see.
Yeah, and one of the problems, Ken, is sadly that, yeah, we're starting to have vaccines right here, but I've been talking already to friends in Spain, New Zealand, and other places. and including Mexico. There's a couple of reporters were just here to find out a little bit more about monkeypox, and the vaccines don't seem to be too close in the future, sadly.
I see. Yeah.
USA, I'm thankful to be here, of course, and USA usually, or the biggest countries are usually the ones that grab. We do know, of course, that monkeypox was it was done by a small factory somewhere, and now they're trying to push it to work as much. But sadly, the vaccines are in not many other places. And these people from Mexico, they came to learn in some way how socially or as a community, how can we start helping? One of my concerns and huge concerns, and again, guys, I understand that a couple of you may have to jump out and you just let me know, is that people forget sometimes the visual aspects of HIV/AIDS. What it was, not only facial wasting, but also the hump. As soon as I saw what monkeypox was, I remember having KS. And the visual aspects of it is, and people are trying immediately not to make it become something with stigma and discrimination. But no doubt, of course, if we see someone with those lesions.
Yes. Well, I'll even jump in. I think it's much broader than just individuals with monkeypox, because we're seeing in the media there's so many different skin diseases out there. People that have odd bumps on their skin that are from many other causes, and they're being taunted on the internet for having monkeypox when they don't. So that's the real issue: is that skin disease is going to be human public is so ignorant that
anything visual is sadly
very stigmatizing.
duplicates, triplicates. I remember seeing this guy in I forgot if it was TikTok or Twitter or one of those, and the guy was an older person and talking very openly about, and he had facial wasting and also tummy issues, and he didn't look that well. And he say how precisely the pandemic did that to him. And some people were almost literally attacking him and saying, you did that to yourself. And I had to also go back to the fact that in the old times, I remember seeing how this article was saying that HIV was happening to the worst of humanity. But let's go back to pets and these pandemics. Do you guys think, and this is your opinion also, of course, and I want to start also to listening to the people that they are with us about anecdotes that they have with their pets and things like that. Do you guys feel that, including monkeypox, is there any way that also animal therapy can be done? And also, Katherine, because you're in charge of this amazing place that is PAWS, and you guys are in the place that you can teach our students or other people a little bit more about this. Do you think, how can we make better this connection of pets and in clients? What do we need to happen? Do we need to bring back the body program in some way, but also to help with our pets? Is there anything else that you guys feel we should include or we need?
Well, I think that animal-assisted therapy, came of age also during the AIDS pandemic, and a lot of organizations. It was already just starting to be more popular just in general, and a lot of hospitals would bring in pets to help people that were sick. And nowadays it's very common to have nursing homes or hospitals to have these visiting animals. With COVID, because it's a human-to-human illness, I don't see how you're going to be able to have that same effect, because it's just too dangerous for the humans. And for monkeypox, it'll be the same. It's going to be people will be isolated at home. So I don't know if it's going to be possible for that. But it has expanded through the whole population. And so I think we should be grateful for the AIDS pandemic to have brought that to being.
Yeah. And I guess it's just a general question, because again, I'm involved also in asking money for mental health. do you guys feel that is there any way possible that we can include also our pets of part of mental health?
Absolutely. I mean, I would love to open it up in a minute too. I'd love to hear what some of our participants and audience members are what's on your mind about it. I think for me, there's so many things that need to happen, but pets are really can and should be part of our daily lives. And so we need to include them in the policy aspects of that. They need to be included in, in Homebridge and in IHSS, within the homes and figuring out those pieces. We need to figure out, the financial assistance piece, also just the populations that can benefit from them. I mean, PAWS right now serves people that already have animals, but one of our goals is to be able to broaden it and serve people that don't yet have animals, but would really benefit from it, who can't today on their own, could not take care of a pet independently, but with the support of some volunteers and some PAWS folks could do that. And I just, one of the smaller contracts we have with the city right now is actually for folks that, for Community Living Fund, CLF, because they work with people that would otherwise potentially be unnecessarily institutionalized. It's a really interesting history. I won't go into all the details given our time, but there was this lawsuit about Laguna Honda. People were being unnecessarily basically just shut in and put away to hospitals for years unnecessarily. And so there was this lawsuit. Now there's this fund to make sure people can stay in the community when they need to, Community Living Fund. And so PAWS actually is funded in a small part through that. And I think that just speaks to the importance of greater understanding for who benefits from animals and who needs support to be able to benefit from animals. One of my favorite things, the last thing I'll say about this is, it's a very powerful intervention and it's not patronizing. Sometimes in social services, it's very like, we're the professionals, we're going to give you this deserving recipient, or, it's not that dynamic at all. It's like people already have a pet. It's a very powerful thing. The pet is already healing the person is with the pet. It's an amazing relationship. It just needs cat food or it just needs a dog walk. It's a very powerful, creative relationship that's already working.
Yeah, I want to open you have something to say, Lynette? I think
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think PAWS is at the leading edge of societal issues. If you look at the demographics, you know that the number of elderly people, the proportion of them is increasing sharply, and the proportion of younger people and new births is decreasing. We're having a crisis of caregivers, not having enough of them in senior care facilities. And at the same time, there's important research going on showing that pets really can make a difference for people who are elderly. And particularly in Japan, where this cultural crisis is happening first, they're doing a lot of research to see whether exposure to companion animals can play a role in either retarding or preventing frailty, which is the complete unraveling of all of your body systems and going downhill. So what we see with people who have AIDS and other disabilities is a preview of what's happening in our society. It's giving us a view of the kinds of problems we need to address. So when we look at people who are homeless or who have disabilities, we think about how to care for their animals, give them support in taking care of them. These are social problems that we need to address in the future.
Yeah. Before I open again, I want to open now the microphones to everyone. Is there anything that I'm missing from the survey? Anything that you guys think I'm missing at this point? Of course, we love it that if the people listening right here and whoever you pass it to, you keep sharing these results of the survey, and I will put the link for the survey as well with the recording. But is there anything from the three of you that I think
I'll jump in, and I just want to thank Lynette for pushing us. She kept saying this is going to get done and we're going to do it, and we did. And look what it did. It really did hit a chord in society. I think people, first of all, the pandemics really ring a bell for people, and then to compare the two pandemics and then having animals as part of that is really why it's so popular, because we all know that during the COVID pandemic, animals helped all of us, survive in ways that we couldn't have imagined. So thank you, Lynette, for pushing it.
Thank you.
And I'm going to thank the three of you. Do any of the three of you have pets?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're opening the microphones. What I want you to start then, Ken, with, I don't know, anything that you want to talk about your pets or your relationship with.
With my pet?
Yeah.
Well, I have Kira. She's a mixed terrier that we adopted right in December, right before the pandemic. So she's really a pandemic puppy, and she's really having difficulty these days being alone because she's been with humans for the last 2.5 years. So we're dealing with that, but she's getting better, but she would prefer to be with people. She's just an amazing dog that I love her dearly. I'm happy to have her in my life. So.
And I can see that in your smile. So I'm going to open the microphones to everyone. And I understand again that if Katherine, Lynette, or I think you might have to jump, to leave soon, anytime before you decide to leave. I'm incredibly thankful. And I will try my best to share this recording with as many people as we can. And Katherine, by the way, if in all these new projects and everything happening, you need the help of our community, we will try. It's not just about receiving, but to also help as much as we can. Susan, do you have anything to say? Because also woman, and again, that this time we were not able to include women, but currently in many other studies. Is there something that you would like to say, Susan?
Thank you for inviting me. It's been very interesting to hear all of this and the focus on the benefits of having pets. We're from an animal-loving family of many generations back. As a sociologist, I'm more familiar with human studies, but there are some good studies done in nursing homes showing that if you have pets, even that come in once a week, the residents are livelier and happier, and they just do better even having a pet come in once a week. So I think that this is all on the right track, and I wish you well and success in the study.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I wanted to give you a voice. Bob, I'm gonna put you on the spot. I know that there are a couple of non-humans in your home. What can I say about that, Bob, please?
Well, we have 2 cats. They're actually my sister's cats, but I moved in with my sister, so they're now my cats. She is the cat slave, and I'm the cat servant. So they love having her around, and they tolerate me. But they are sweet. One is very scared all the time, and the other one just loves everyone who comes into the house. I spend time with them every day. They're part of my life. I was always a dog person before. I grew up with dogs and I love dogs, but I've really come to appreciate cats because they are always, they kind of, they get under your skin without realizing it, even if they are trying to hide that they care. So yes, that's my experience.
And that conversation again is not that, oh, I have to remind everyone, this is like a coming from the cat people. Cat videos are still watched a lot more in social media than dog videos. Just saying that. But anybody else that is online, very online. Dennis, you have the puppy right there. Come on, you must have something to talk about your companion.
Well, I have 4 this month. I'm dog sitting for friends, but this is my little boy, Dexter.
Oh.
Let's see if I can get him on that. There he is.
Yeah.
Adorable.
I got him. He's a COVID rescue.
Okay.
And he was a godsend for me. It really helped me get through the isolation without being too crazy. Although 4 dogs right now is a little bit much, I still feel like I'm surrounded by love.
Where are you located?
Right now I'm in Pasadena.
Pasadena, okay.
This was Dexter's first flight.
Okay.
That he took.
Yeah, let's go back again. Our mental health is you think precisely. I know I live with anxiety and PTSD. Do you think in some way help you to keep going to
Well,
manage your
I
life?
had seizures that I couldn't control, and when I got the dog, everything just seemed to fade. I'm sure there were a lot of other factors that were associated with it, but I think that having the dog really calmed me down.
Wow.
And now he's a certified emotional support animal too. So
All right.
Yeah, and definitely, like I have friends of mine that she had epilepsy, and I mean, we have to really also talk about all the real physical aspects that many animals can help us. I know that this is the moment that we start living in some way. My mom is present, so I'm gonna ask her in Spanish. Mamá, ¿cómo cree usted que? And I'm gonna translate it for you guys. ¿Cómo cree usted que mi hija le ayuda en su vida o nos ayuda? Ah, tiene que poner el micrófono abierto. She has to open the microphone. Let's see, just wait for a moment to see if she can do it. There you go. Okay, mama. ¿Cómo cree que le ayuda mi hija en su vida o nos ayuda? I can still not hear her. No te oímos, madre. Okay, well, no, we cannot hear her, but I'm sure she has some good words to say. No te podemos oír, madre. But anyway, that's my mama. So just saying that. But I want to again, thank you all of you guys, and I know that there's other people online. If you had anything to say, but all that I can say is that many times. Hold on one second. Somebody is having something right here. Yeah, Lynette. Thank you, Lynette. She has to leave us, and we will be leaving soon. I am one of the many people that suffers with chronic pain, and sometimes my chronic pain is like a really scratching the walls. I realized yesterday, and I was talking to Bob about that even when we say I have a chronic illness or I have a chronic pain, also the levels of things that we experience are different, and sometimes maybe we have to clarify things a little bit. But I do know that many times, if I feel like I cannot get out of bed, and again, I know that I have to feed her, I know that I have to take care of her, and that without me, maybe my mom will still take care of her, but that there is a little creature that needs me, and that keeps me going. And for me, that's a beautiful thing. If anybody else has anything else to say, otherwise, again, oh my God, your puppy. We will be sharing this recording, and otherwise, oh my God, I think that we can write books about our pet companions and what they do for us. But at least for myself, I'm incredibly thankful. And Katherine, I want to repeat to you that what PAWS does for many people, sometimes maybe we don't have the chance to thank PAWS. And please, Prado and all the volunteers, when they come to the door, and especially during the holidays, when they bring us all these things and everything, everything, all of those things make a huge difference in our lives. So Lynette, I know she's gone. I want to, my God, the power behind this survey was amazing. Ken, I know that I tell you many times, but you're constantly doing a lot of things from our communities, and I want to recognize that as well. And the rest of you, I'm just thankful that you guys are here. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Anything else that you guys like to see besides what do? We keep going. Anything else? Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much, Jesus. This has
Thank
been
you.
amazing. Thank you so much for organizing it and bringing us together. I really appreciate it.
And I will share the link with you guys again. Jesus Guillem from San Francisco. San Francisco. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Katherine. Thank you, everybody else. Love you. Hugs and kisses, because I'm very affectionate. And I guess one of these days I have to hug you. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.